Hello and welcome to Accessible Website Design webinar. I'm really happy that you're here, and I saw that you mentioned that responsive design is something that is important, and I totally agree with this. And actually today's webinar will be a little bit of responsive design, how it affects accessibility, why it's important, and why accessibility on digital interfaces is actually important for everyone, and how it can improve people's life. So firstly, I'd like to mention what is accessibility for those who didn't hear. Well, I'm sure you heard the term, but accessibility can mean different things for in different areas. So often when we hear accessibility, people think, oh, this is like lift for a building where there are stairs, or maybe accessibility is good for trains when there are extra seats for disabled people, so or wider doors. This would be considered accessibility. I'm focusing on digital accessibility mostly, and what this means is that basically websites or mobile applications or any digital interface is built in a way that is accessible to everyone regardless of their abilities. So whether maybe someone is blind, or maybe they have some cognitive disorders or loss of hearing, they still can use our website. And this is not only for people who are permanently disabled, because sometimes we might have people who actually have temporary disability. Maybe someone broke their arm and they cannot use both hands, or they have to do something with left hand. So imagine using mouse, for example, with left hand is actually quite difficult if you're not used to it, if you're right-handed. And then actually trying to click on small points or buttons or links with left hand and trying to actually get to the right point, that might be actually quite difficult. So those are the things that we're considering as well. Or someone is in bright daylight. If contrast is really poor on the website, that means that people won't be able to actually see what's on the screen. If you are in noisy environment, then this is something that a lot of us are actually using captions because you can't hear what is on the video. And captions originally were made for people hard of hearing, but a lot of people actually is using it on daily basis. So this is accessibility, and it's actually quite important for everyone to consider this when they're building websites or other interfaces, not only from a legal perspective, because a lot, obviously that is really a big why, and a lot of companies will actually consider accessibility because it's now required by law, and there are big fines, starting from obviously smaller fines to actually organizations that look after accessibility regulations. They are able to shut your website down, which would be a huge loss for the business. And in some countries like Ireland, for example, you could even face imprisonment if your website is not accessible. So it's actually quite important to make sure that your websites or other digital interfaces are accessible. So let's look at the challenge of how responsive design is actually a big part of accessibility and overall user experience, and what is responsive design. So responsive design is when you design something that will be is not adaptable. So it's the same content in responsive design. Most likely is the same content on different devices. And when we design in this way, we need to consider mobile, tablet, and desktop as a minimum. Often you have something like fluid design, so it needs to be, it needs to obviously work on all the sizes, but those 3 breakpoints are the most important ones. And also what happens then is, like, when you have content on, like, let's say we're looking at desktop at the moment, you have content on desktop. When you look at a smaller device, this content isn't just shrunk, so it's really small and you cannot see bits and pieces, but actually is changing. It has the same content but laid out in a different way, and I will show you in a moment how this works on the platform that I work with. But for now, let's just leave it as this, and let's talk why this is actually super important for people with accessibility needs. Do you have any questions maybe at this stage?
No, everything is clear. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, so generally responsive design isn't just about screens. It's about making your experience work for different people. So it's not just for disabilities. Of course, in this webinar, we are focusing on people with different disabilities, and that's why we are considering this, but actually it improves usability for everyone. So if your website is fully responsive, people can use it on different devices. And let's say they are trying to look at and book holidays. They might be looking, well, it's evening, they're sitting on a sofa, they're looking on something for something on mobile, but then they would like to book. And from experience, we know that like when there is a bigger purchase, people still prefer to do it on desktop. So they might be looking for something on mobile, but then they will go to the desktop to make the purchase. And imagine if everything is in different places on desktop and they have to learn the interface again. That means that it will take them longer and possibly they will drop off and won't complete the journey. So for this reason, it's important that that the interface is very, very similar and has the same components. So that's the most important part for this. And so we had different behaviors on different devices as well. Yeah, with mobile, you might want to do it with one hand. You probably are in different environment as well. You might be just quickly looking for something. With desktop, you've got bigger screen, you can see more things, and for this reason, it's actually like people will have preference what they would like to do. Like my mom, for example, prefers to use tablet for everything than mobile. She doesn't have desktop, but she prefers using tablet because she can see more of the screen. And this is something that is important to consider. So you reach bigger group of people. Also with people being able to zoom in and zoom out. So for example, people with low vision, they might want to zoom in. I spoke to a person who is partially blind, so he can still see something. And what he said, that when he is on desktop, he will just zoom in, because that way he can actually see the whole text, like see bigger letters. If you don't do responsive design, this will just be like really difficult for him to find anything. If you do responsive design, this will actually change the layout of the screen, and that is actually super important. Let me just see if I can demonstrate this on my website. Okay, I'm going to share my screen for a moment. Sure. Okay. Let's see. Can you see text circle for coaches?
Yes.
Okay, so let's look at this page as an example. So let's say I want to, this is like typical desktop. I'm going to close this. Typical desktop page, and now I want to zoom in. So what happens here? See, it changed at this point to some point. It actually changed to like just made it bigger, so they have to still like they don't even have to scroll. You still don't have to scroll left and right on this one. So this is the standard size, and I want to make it bigger. It makes it bigger, but as soon as it doesn't fit, like the text doesn't fit, it doesn't matter that the logo is cut off, the text is still visible, and I actually zoom that in to 150%. People need to be able to zoom into 200%. So what you see like at 200%, it actually changed to different layout. This is tablet layout. So they can still see, like they lost because I'm able to actually make some differences. So for example, on desktop, I had this design here, and I changed for mobile. It's just plain text on red background. And but the most important thing is that it's bigger, but they can still see and all the content, and they can do everything. This one is a good one to see. Control 0. So this one, for example, is 3 columns with 3 different cards, and then when I actually make it at 200%, you see those cards are actually one under another, which it's much easier for people to read, and they don't have to scroll right and left, but they can still interact with the page. Sometimes people will zoom in even more, like to 400%, but the minimum requirement for websites is 200%. Okay. Okay, so coming back to that person that I talked to, they said that when on the desktop, because it lets them zoom in quite a lot, they will be using, well, they will basically make text bigger and everything bigger. But when they have to do something on mobile, instead of zooming in, you still can zoom in, but you have to then move the page a lot, right and left and everything, and it's actually difficult to see because you will just see really small part of this. So now I'm making it smaller. It should actually, yeah, this is how it would look like on mobile at the moment. So and they can still see it, but then they would actually use for mobile, they use screen reader to help them. So it's important, even for this group of people, it's important that the way it's built is actually available for screen readers as well. And do you have any questions?
One question about the zoom in. So maybe it's not about zoom in, it's more about the setting in the mobile. So I know that in the app, the user can change the setup in their phone to display the text bigger, to have bigger text basically. Do you know if this setting also apply, like if I change my size of the text on my device, does it also apply to the website, or is it just for the apps?
I believe that the actual setting you're talking about is for the apps, but if they set the size of the text generally in mobile, if the website enables, I believe that would change the text there as well on a website. May change, but normally they would need to zoom in and zoom out to see
Yes.
the text. Yeah. For
Yeah.
ads, yes, because I have actually text bigger set up on my phone, but then on the website it's just the same
The
text.
same, yeah. Some website I know they also have the setting to make the text bigger inside the website itself. Okay, I just wanted to mention that I was actually not aware that that there is the setting to make the website responsive when zooming in. I think it's pretty rare. I haven't seen it anywhere else. That I think normally when I zoom in, it's just zooming in. It doesn't change. It doesn't necessarily change the layout to the tablet, for example. So it was actually interesting. I didn't know that.
So yes, thank you for saying that. And this isn't a specific. This is a specific setting on the website that you can do it. It's more about if the website is actually built
Responsive.
using
Ah,
responsive design, then
okay.
it will be responsive. And if you zoom in at some point, it should actually change. So the way it works from technical perspective, let's say you have desktop website and you have those three cards. At some point, the computer will be told, okay, if this doesn't fit any longer into this space, behave like tablet, behave like mobile. So it automatically then switches to different design. And TUI website is responsive design as well. So that should work in the
Yeah,
same way.
perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
So
that's
it's
all. Question.
Thank you for this question. It's very important actually for people to be able to do it, and this way they are not losing content, but it's much easier for them to actually see what they need to see. Another reason why responsive design and accessibility actually go well together is font size, size of buttons, size of spacing, and imagine you have you have a page, and I'm not going to show the example, but a friend of mine created his website in Canva, and it looks beautiful on desktop. However, the website is not responsive because of the platform that he used is not responsive. So what it does, it actually shrinks everything. So when I looked at this on mobile, all the menus, all the buttons and everything, they were so teeny tiny that literally I would need to use a pin to be able to use it on mobile. So that automatically excludes from your interface everyone who is not using your website on desktop. And what's important is to note that majority of your clients now will be looking at your website on a mobile. This could be because they get link from social media or from your friends, their friends, or from someone else. But the first, most of people, the first contact with your website will be on mobile. About 75% of people will be looking at the website on mobile, about 2% on tablet, and then the rest on desktop. And of course, depending on the organization, depending on what kind of services you provide, that might be a little bit fluid, but still majority, like over 65%, I can bet on they will use it on mobile. For this reason, it's actually really important to design mobile first. So first we create how this website would look like on mobile, what is the important thing to show people, in what order. And then we can actually say, okay, so those are the things, this is how it looks like on mobile. So on desktop, I need the same components. Sometimes you might add some things on desktop, so it's richer, maybe a bit more content, maybe some additional functionality for desktop. But if you look at mobile first, that means that you will be able to put the core functionality on both mobile and desktop. If you do it the other way around, if you design for desktop first, it's actually like you think like you want to fill in the space because it looks weird when there is so much empty space, and then suddenly like you need to move it to mobile, and then it looks like it's too many things and you can never squeeze it in the mobile in mobile interface. So for you it should be easy because you mentioned that you were mostly app designer before, so you are used to designing for mobile, but for majority of designers it's actually a big switch, and even like I'm using Kajabi to build websites for my clients, and like the default state is actually desktop, and then only then it will move onto mobile, like you have a switch. I will demonstrate that a bit later when I get to the demo part, but by default everyone is designing on desktop. What is good about Kajabi, the platform I'm using, is that it will automatically create for you designs for mobile, so you don't actually have to think how to do it, where with other platforms I've been using, you actively have to design something for that for mobile as well, and it's actually creating lots of issues for people. That's why I like Kajabi platform, because it's doing half of the job for me anyway. So that is beautiful, and I'll show in a moment how this works. Okay, so I mentioned sizes of links, of buttons. So if website is not responsive, basically it will shrink it. And then now imagine, okay, even I said I had problem with using that particular website because everything was super teeny tiny. But just imagine if someone has problem with actually like they have some mobility issues and they need to still like try to find this find the link to tap on it, or find particular icon. That is creating a big challenge for them. And also what we want to make sure is that we have specific font size and line spacing as well. So font size is the actual, like what you see, how big the letters are. And for this, you will have, there isn't minimum size that is specified in regulations at the moment, because you can zoom in and zoom out. So that is considered that people still have access to it. However, best practice is that the font size is minimum 16 pixels. You can have 14 pixels for really small text, but I would only use it really scarcely or some extra information that is really not important. Normally it would be 16 pixels or even 18 pixels, and it depends on the font. If font is lighter, like might be better to have 18 pixels. Some companies even go 20 pixels for body text. If you have bold text, that it doesn't need to be so big because its visibility is better, but I still would stick to 16 pixels as a minimum. Especially on mobile, this is really visible, because if the font is really small, then it's really difficult to read. Like 16 pixels of desktop is very reasonable size of the phone, or 14 is still visible as well. But if you look at like some people use 12 or 14, and then on mobile it is really teeny tiny, so I always adjust it to make sure it's at least 16 pixels. And from line spacing is it's the distance between, like when you've got body of text, between one line and the other. And you can also make different sizes when you work for bigger organization and you have design system that is specified already for you. But if you need to do it on your own, then I believe at the moment 1 and 1.5 is the minimum line height to meet accessibility requirements. because it's easier to read when there is more space between line instead of making text really condensed. Okay. Avoiding clutter on small screens as well. So this links to what I said, if you design for desktop and you put lots of stuff and then trying to squeeze everything on mobile, that will be a challenge. So yeah, it's better to have design on mobile in mind first, and then if you want to fill in the space on desktop because you've got more space, then that's fine. Maybe you can add an illustration or something extra that is not that important, like people can still use it without this feature, but they just need to have the core functionality on both desktop and mobile. Okay, structure and flow is another thing that I wanted to mention, and let me just thinking. No, I'll do the demo everything together a bit later in a minute. So, in terms of structure and flow, what we want to make sure is that we have logical reading order. So when you have mobile, you read from top to bottom and is more or less logical, like where do you go. However, when you have a desktop, that is often becoming a bit more difficult, because you might have something in one column, then in another column, maybe you need to go to menu somewhere else. So we need to specify order of reading. And for like by default, it will always read top down, and then if you've got clear headings, so it's super important to specify clear headings. There should be one clear heading 1 on the website, then you will have heading 2, those will be like main chapters on your website, then you will have heading 3 in headings 2, so you cannot skip like heading 2 and then heading 4. What I often see on websites is that for styling, so let's say heading 3 is font size 24 and heading 4 is font size 20, and someone decides that they actually want smaller font there. So instead of making font smaller but keeping this heading marked as heading 3, they actually change this heading to heading 4. What it does is when someone on screen reader is reading your page, they don't see the styling or anything. They think that something is missing, or they might not even get to this content at all because they will just operate the website by headings. The way they're reading it, they just read headings. They don't read the whole page. They just read heading by heading. And if they find something interesting, then they dive deep into this one. So if your heading 3 is missing, then they might not even go to heading 4 because they will never actually see it, if that makes sense. See it in quotation, like hear it on the screen reader. And also, like if you've got clear hierarchy, what are the sections and everything, it's easier to read for everyone. Just imagine when you're doing like a document in Word or when you're reading a book, you have all those chapters and it's so much easier to read than if there is just everything mixed up and you don't know actually what to expect and where to read first or what's important, what's not important. And not only for accessibility and usability, but also this is important for SEO. So when Google or AI is scanning your websites, then they actually look for the structure as well. Because if something is in heading 2, it's more important that it's in body text. If something is in heading 1, it's more important than heading 2. So this is also really, really important to structure page correctly, and to make sure that it's all marked with the right semantics. And one last thing I also wanted to mention is, because we're talking about some differences on mobile and desktop, because is that we can, like, the differences are fine it's not a problem to have them, but sometimes you actually, and it's important that you have consistency. So let's say you have a help button, you always want this in the same place, and this could be this reduces mental effort. It's very important for neurodivergent issues. It's got more predictability. People don't need to learn every time where something is. So this is actually one of the requirements of FAUCAC. FAUCAC is a list of requirements for website to make it accessible, and actually this was added recently, that important functionality like getting help or contacting people, it should always be in the same place. It can differ slightly between devices, but if you have help button or contact button in the main menu on desktop, you don't want to just put it on the first page on on mobile, right, and not put it in the menu on desktop on mobile. So yes, skill functionality needs to be in the same place, not necessarily visually, because obviously mobile we have smaller screen, so it can be somewhere else on the page, but then it should be always in the same place across the pages. Let's say you have web chat, it always should be in one place, not that you go onto the page and sometimes it's in the right bottom corner, sometimes it's in top right corner or there. So it should, if you're looking at a device, it needs to be in the same place. Okay. Any questions before I move forward?
So I have one question about maybe it's not necessarily about responsive design, because I understand like in the responsive design the content is the same, the layouts change depending on the device, but there are also websites that have dedicated mobile version, for example, that it's not responsive, but it's designed especially for the mobile, which can mean like some of elements of this website is different than, for example, desktop, right? So if we design something like this, how we can make sure the user, when they enter the website on the mobile, they don't have to relearn the structure or relearn the navigation. Is there any like minimum requirements that or elements that should actually be similar, or where to put our attention to, just not to make this too different or too complicated to actually navigate this kind of website depending where we are, basically?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is a good question, and this is, I think it's more of case by case, and the decision belongs to a designer. What they decide is important, what's not. There isn't any like minimum requirement, but some components, like I mentioned, for example, help, chat, maybe how to complain, how to book, things like this still will be the same. So the core components need to be the same. And from my experience, when you have a good design for web, even if it's like mobile web, that will still, like when you've got desktop web, that needs still to be responsive. So they would be very similar. What usually happens is when someone just designs like for mobile web, is that they will just put core functionality and strip out what is not needed. I believe something like this is happening with Amazon or with Audible, one of those, that, like, for example, you can get into your account, but you on mobile you cannot change your subscription. So to change your subscription, you actually have to go to desktop, and that would be that wouldn't be proper responsive design, because with responsive design you would have exact same functionality. but with this one you only have limited functionality. So it's still possible to design it in this way. But then between the actual mobile web, like on what you often have on mobile web, at the bottom you have something like view the website version of this, like desktop version of this. And that's when you can switch to other version where you've got the whole functionality. So it's not instead, usually it's in addition to responsive design, I would say. It's like going a step further.
That makes sense. And one more question. It's not actually related to the functionality, but I know, like, besides the websites that are more, let's say, service driven or sales driven, there are, for example, the website that main role is building the brand, like a yes, the brand, I would say, the image of the brand, which very often is very usually the creators, the designers put a lot of emphasis on the aesthetics. So sometimes they use some more complicated navigation, scroll, different ways of scrolling through it, or a lot of animation, for example. So what would be your, let's say, advice how to balance the aesthetics and being more original in the design and more creative versus accessibility, for example?
That is a standard. I would say a standard myth that accessible websites are ugly. Because yes, you need to simplify a lot when you want to make sure that your website is accessible. You mentioned decorative fonts, for example. They are really difficult to read, and if someone's got dyslexia or other neurodiversity, if let's say a font is super decorative, it will be difficult to actually for them to see the letters, and then if there is lots of stuff that is happening, like videos auto playing or lots of animations, that is so overwhelming for people and so distracting that they will have to just switch off the website. So I'm gonna leave this question with you on what is more important for you as a designer. That is it that 50% of people that come to your website will say, oh wow, that really looks pretty, or that 100, maybe never 100, but 80 or 90% of people will come to a website and say, oh, this is a decent website and I can actually use it and I can actually buy from something from them. So what would be the more important?
Yeah, I guess if I will run my own business, I would prefer more people to buy my products and be able to.
Of
So
course.
it's pretty practical. I know that are also like the website, they don't maybe sell necessarily like cultural organizations, right? Some exhibitions that they try to be more creative. But yes, it doesn't mean that we should exclude other people, the people who would make this, like, feel that this website is problematic for them to read, because we still want to kind of show them what we have to show.
Yes, totally. And and there are different tools that we can actually use to help. So for example, when there are animations, they shouldn't be constant animation. So if there is something like happening under 5 seconds, that's most likely fine. Of course, not too many of those animations, but every here and there, it's okay. If you have video auto playing, that shouldn't be playing for more than 5 seconds. And ideally, you wouldn't have autoplay. You actually the video would have play button, and that you can press on it. But if something is auto playing, you need to have clear pause button on it so people can pause it. With animations, you can put a requirement to developers that animations need to be turned on if a user requested on a website that animations are not active. So users can actually switch off animations, and but the website need to be designed in this way. For example, one of the big organizations website, I won't use the name, but they switched off the option to zoom in on text. So users cannot actually zoom in and make a website look like 200%, which is crazy, right? You would think this is like the basic thing, like one of the first things I talked about, but they didn't enable users to do it. So things like this are really important, like as designers, that we need to put this requirement to developers, that to make sure if we plan for any animations, that animations actually can be turned off. What else? With other like more beautiful things, you can play a lot with creativity with, for example, like what kind of illustrations you use, or colors, or what is the layout. So you can still be creative, and with different components. For example, we were working at TUI. We were working before on what was the alternative dates component, and this required actually on desktop. It required scrolling. We used you use arrow for this one, but on mobile you would think you can just scroll with your fingers, right? And that is complicated component actually. However, when someone's got turned on screen reader on mobile, when they do the same shift like what you normally would do with carousels across the screen, it won't actually make them scroll the carousel. It will behave as tab on desktop, so it will go to the next component instead. So they would never ever have access to the content that we want to show them. For this reason, if you are creating a specific component, it's still fine to be creative, and it's still fine to put something that isn't like straightforward and standard, but then you need to find ways of going around this, and then making sure that other users are also able to see and hear this content. In this case, we added little chevrons under this, we called it horizontal scroll component. So with this chevron, it means that now users that are on mobile, they can actually, instead of scrolling, they can press on this chevron, and they can move as well through the content. But all of this then needs to be specified on your designs, and it's not for developers to work out how this will work. It's actually for designers to really deeply describe how this component needs to work, and then work with developers what would be the technical implementation. A lot of components that we are using will be determined actually in HTML. So if we are using like native HTML components on the website, we assume that they are accessible. Majority of them are, because obviously every company that is using HTML, they need to make sure it's accessible, but not all of them. And sometimes we need to build our own component. Or sometimes we want to build our own component just for the reason that you mentioned, is that you want to make sure it's like more interesting or something. But then we really need to go deep into all those considerations, like can everyone see it, hear it, use it? Is it working with assistive technology? How is it working? Do we need to add maybe some special labels for this? So way more work, but sometimes is worthwhile. But first I would always make sure that everyone can use it, and then the second would be like how beautiful it looks like. Okay, so just a quick summary before I go to a quick demo. So we said that firstly, like with the practical tips, is design mobile first. because this forces clarity and removes unnecessary elements if you have smaller screen. Prioritize your content. That also helps with like what you put on the page. So what is that matters on this page the most to users, and then if you've got bigger screen and more space, you can actually add something else. All the buttons and links easy to click. So check the size of your targets, and especially check it on mobile as well if people have the same access. Does it still work at 200% zoom? Sometimes even bigger, but 200% would be minimal. And yeah, scan for clutter. The more white space you give, the easier it is for people to read it, and keep paragraph short as well, so it will it's easier to process than having a wall of text. Okay, I'm going to move to a quick demo. If you have questions in the meantime, I'm happy to answer.
I think I asked all the questions for now, but I will probably have more.
Right, so let me share my screen. Okay. Okay. Right. Just actually stop sharing and share different way, because okay, now okay, can you see my page on
Yes.
Kajabi?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so here is how I build when I build it on Kajabi. So obviously, as a designer, you will be just designing, and then developers will take it for building, and they use coding. When I work with my clients, I usually use a platform, and I use ready components, but those components are highly customizable. So some of the things that it lets me do, for example, we were talking about headings. So let's say I go to this component, and then I can, like this text circle for coaches. So I highlight this, and I can set it now what it is. Is it heading or is it paragraph? And let's say if you don't have headings, some people will do like, okay, I just have all the paragraph text and just make the font bigger. This would be wrong for the structure, because people using screen readers, for example, they would never actually get to this block. So I want to go to headings, and then I want to choose the right heading. So this is heading 1 for me, and then I have those chapters. So those are like here, as you can see, this is heading 2. So if I change it, you will see heading. So let's say like someone wanted to make it slightly smaller and they use heading 4, it would be smaller, but then it would be wrong structure. So I had heading 1, this needs to be heading 2. So I'm going to move it back to heading 2. And it's beautiful on Kajabi because it actually, like I set up before, what is the size of my headings, what is the color, how they should look like. So that already gives me a lot of consistency. So I don't have to think every time about what was the size, what was the color, what font I use, because I set it once and then it will always use the same. I'll show you in a minute this styling as well. And these are like smaller parts of the website. Then those are like, this is heading 3, for example. At least it should be heading 3. And so if I change it to, let's say, heading 2, it's bigger, yeah, but this was my heading 3. So this is what I was talking about in structure of the page that is important. Also, in terms of wall of text, you don't want like too big. So let's say, obviously, even from visual perspective, it doesn't look too good when text is from side to side. So the page is built on 12 columns. And in designs as well, like usually when we, as UX designers, we have number of columns that we want to use. But this one, like Kajabi, uses 12 columns. And I can have side-to-side text, but it would be very difficult to read it. So for this one, I set 10 columns, but I can, like, even better would be to use 8 columns. And yeah, because this one is small, I want to also mark that this component should be, so on desktop, I go to desktop layout, and I make sure that I tick place this block on its own row. What this does is actually moves other components down, so I actually have this on its own. Super easy to do, takes seconds. And obviously keeping like the rest of the page just white, like lots of white backgrounds to make sure that it's easy to read. In terms of fonts as well, like some fonts are easier to read on screens than in books. For example, Times New Roman was brilliant for books, but it's really difficult to read on digital. For digital, it's easier to read sans serif fonts, which are not these decorative fonts. You can add decoration like one word somewhere, but if you start using this as your body text, that will be really, really difficult for people to read your website, and they will just drop off. And settings, if I go to settings and I go to style guide, this is actually where I can set up my colors. So I haven't changed it. Primary color should be my color here. I set up my color palette before, so changing my primary color to burgundy. And then you can set up your fonts here, and this is what I was talking about, body line height. So let's look at some body of text. This one, for example, this body line height is, go back, style guide. When you click on something on the right, it takes you to this component straight away. So let's say I will put it for 3, just to show a difference. And I'm going to save it. And you see how far the lines are now from each other.
Yeah, so it updates the whole website, not only this one component, because it applies to the okay, yeah.
Yes. Obviously, I'm going to change it to 1.6 because it's way too far, and 1.5 was the minimum that we were looking at in this case. And here you can change size of your font, and again, so body size desktop, I have 18 pixels. So this is what you see here is 18 pixels. Usually it's still smaller, like when I go to preview, it will be bigger. This should be 18 as well. You don't want heading to be smaller than body text. So this would be 18. And then on mobile, again, same like with heading 6 should also be 18. But body size on mobile is, should be 18 as well. This shouldn't, I can drag it to move, but it shouldn't really be here. Okay, it went up now. Yeah, so I can see it. So body size of mobile is 18 pixels for me as well. And one last thing I wanted to show on Kajabi is that it beautifully enables you to build actually website looking at desktop and mobile and tablet. So here we're looking at a desktop at the moment, but if I want to switch to mobile view, I can actually see everything how it looks like on mobile. if I want, and this is something you also ask, like if I want it more decorative. So for example, here is this kind of shape, like, so looks a bit different on desktop than on mobile. I'm rebranding now, so that will look different soon. But yeah, with my current website, this is how it looks like. But for mobile, I just wanted it to be straight, because when I had this curve, it actually went through half of the button. So half of the button was on red background and half of white, so that wasn't good. So what I was able to do is actually go to section. You see I have Hero Mobile and Hero Desktop. So I am able to actually build a different component just for mobile or a different component just for desktop if it doesn't work for both. And that's still okay. And users won't even know. But yeah, it actually nicely changes for me. Like I have to build something on desktop and it nicely changing for me for mobile. If I want to change something, I can like hide section, I can make more padding, more spaces, but not make super huge changes that it would break totally my desktop experience. So I always have the same content on desktop and mobile, but sometimes I will build two sections that are almost the same and just hide one of the sections and then show the section on desktop instead. That makes sense. And yeah, here is our page. Okay. All right. Any more questions for regarding this, like Kajabi them?
No, I think everything is clear. I have some also like experience before with the website and also building it for my clients when I was a freelancer, and definitely like tackling the desktop, and then okay, now I have to do mobile as well. That was always kind of a hectic experience with even like with the website builders, because very often something would break.
Yeah.
Right, you will change something somewhere and then you don't realize it breaks the tablet or it breaks the
Oh
mobile.
yes.
So I think it's always like it always felt like just pulling the rope, from one side to another, or like your sheet that is too small. But it's good to see that there are also like the tools that actually can handle it better and basically scale it and make it responsive easier, that it doesn't break or doesn't behave in the way that you cannot predict either. So it's good to also, if you are not really want to like invest a lot of time in coding, for example, right? It can
Yes.
be like much more simpler and enjoyable experience as well.
Yes, definitely. And obviously, for big organizations, they can afford a whole team of developers. And it
Mm-hmm.
actually is very expensive to build a website from scratch using coding. So we rely on different platforms to build it for smaller organizations. And I worked with a lot of platforms, and actually Kajabi is the first one that actually gave me really good experience, where it turns everything on mobile into on desktop into mobile, and also is blocking me from messing up experience on desktop when I actually make changes on mobile. When I worked with Wix, yeah, exactly experience that you describe is I did something like I created the page and then I made some changes on mobile, and then suddenly everything is out of place for desktop as well. So it was really difficult, and you go backwards and forward just all the time, and fixing everything where here is really done for you.
Yeah. Yeah. And also, I know from my experience that, especially with the smaller clients, people often later want to make some tweaks by themselves, right? And having something similar and also preventing them from breaking something.
Yes.
It's also a key, because so many times you can like, okay, I will hand over you the website. It's beautiful. It works perfectly on all the devices. but then they want to change a text or add the image and then it breaks completely.
Yes.
And fixing this is sometimes more difficult than actually build something from scratch.
Exactly, that's exactly my experience. And yeah, let's say some other platforms, you add a bit like 2 lines of text, and suddenly you
Mhm.
have to actually change all the sections. You change sections on desktop, you need to change them on mobile as well. And here I literally just add the text, and then it will automatically change
Mhm.
everything and change the layout for me. So yeah, it's really good platform to use. Yeah. Oh, great.
Okay,
Oh,
yeah.
thank you. Thank you for
Oh,
sharing that. That was very important. And and I just wanted to mention, obviously, I work for, like, I build websites for mostly for coaches, but any other professionals, like personal development professionals, and um, I build websites for other people as well, like my niche is coaches. But generally, I worked for like bakery, and I build websites for physiotherapists, for Polish school. So I can help anyone if they would like to build a website. But what you said is important as well, is that um, if I build website for someone, they're not tied into working with me all the time, like with some other organizations, because I can then teach them how to make smaller changes, and they can go in and they can amend it without worrying that they will break something. So that is
mhm.
really powerful for people, and my clients really appreciate that. So yeah.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Yeah, the technology now it makes the work much easier for sure.
Yes, and if anyone would like my expertise in giving them audit of the website to see what's working, what's not working on the website, then yeah, they can just give me a call or message me, and I'll be always happy to help. Uh, Accessibility is my passion, so especially in this area, but also with user experience and usability. I'm I've been doing it for over 15 years now, so always happy to look at someone's website and give them tips how they can improve it, or do it for them.
Awesome.
Thank you so much. Thank you for joining the webinar, first of all, and I hope you find it useful. Is there like one thing that you would like to say, like what was the key outcome, key learning for you from this webinar?
Mhm. I think it was a good summary of the key things to pay attention. It's like a real minimum, but it's the most crucial thing. I think what you said also about the balancing the visuals versus the accessibility and usability of the website is also key because I previously work in branding as well, and very often the clients or the companies wanted to have something, very they wanted to stand out, right, from the crowd, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's gonna work. So it's also I think something to always keep in mind, right? What, like, ask yourself what is really more important. Do you want to be like, wow, create this effect, or you just want to sell, for example, or
Yes.
inform? Yeah. So that was, yeah, good reminder as well.
Thank you. And I really like your perspective of being both in brand before and now in design, because that's the area where even marketing with design, but especially brand with design, always clash a little bit, because brand comes up with all this beautiful thing, but it's not necessarily usable, or it's not necessarily something that is accessible. So it's good to have this dialogue between teams and collaborate from the start. Maybe we just need to change shading a little bit, like different shade of blue color, and it already is accessible because it has enough contrast. It's just such a simple thing, and if the requirements are there from the start, it works for everyone there.
Mm-hmm.
Nice,
Yeah.
nice.
And also, it's a good exercise for us, right? Like for designers to look for maybe simpler way, like a challenge to, ask ourselves, can we make it a little bit simpler or, and have still a good visual effect, right? I think this is like the challenges that we don't necessarily speak about very often. We all want to like put a lot of creativity, but it's also kind of creativity, right? How to
Yes.
find the answer to this, like two different approaches to design.
Mm.
So yeah,
Yes,
interesting.
definitely. It's actually more difficult to design simpler things than
Mm-hmm.
just put everything what you think on a page and in whatever way. So it actually requires more creativity to make sure it's simpler. It works for everyone. Like we should like when we put content on the page, it should be readable by someone who is aged like 12 or at least 15, but like 12 would be the sweet spot. So because of that, it's then easy to read for people who have like either cognitive issues or maybe are neurodivergent, so then that helps them as well. So you're reaching more customers. It's by making it simpler and simpler, and people who don't have those different disabilities, they are like neurotypical, for example, uh, they still can use it, and it will be easier for them as well.
Yes. Yes. And
But
especially, I think, with the fact that we are so overstimulated on daily basis, right? We have problem
exactly.
with focus in general. You don't have to be neurodivergent to experience that. So I think like having a product website on the app where you actually can like relax your mind as well a little bit, not think too much and just do what you have to do and don't think much about it. I think it really benefits everyone basically.
Yes, 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 for sure. Like imagine having a really long form that is just one long block of fields you have to go through versus having this broken down into 3 or 5 steps, and you just
Hmm.
have to fill in that one step, and then you go to the next step, right? And then you can save in between as well, so you don't lose content. It's just it's easy to design for this and even build, and then it's helpful for everyone, as you mentioned. It's
Hmm.
really a really beautiful example, Magda, that you just gave.
Let's wish for that, for all of us.
Exactly, exactly. Okay, lovely. Thank you so much for joining, and
Thank you for your time. I really appreciate it too.
you're very welcome. Have a lovely day. Bye.
You too. Bye bye.